Good evening, Cincinnati. My name is Stacey Smith, and I just wanted to say thank you for joining tonight. I'm really excited to share with you what I'm passionate about and what I hope to bring to the table if elected to Cincinnati City Council. I appreciate your time, I value your time, and I appreciate your interest in what I'm doing. I want to invite you to stick around after this pre-recorded portion because I will be going live on the Facebook page to answer questions and to interact with anyone who's present. And I would love to see you. I would love to get to know you, answer any questions you may have, and to just see that you're here. So please stick around for that. A couple of things before we get started into my platform. First of all, I just wanted to let you know that this is entirely unscripted because life is unscripted, especially in 2020. Cincinnati City Council is unscripted, especially in 2020. And I want you to get to know the real me, not a scripted version of me, but I want you to see how I communicate in real time, my quirks, my interests, all of that. I want you to get to know who I really am. Again, not some scripted version. So this is the real me. What you see tonight is what you get. And I value authenticity. So I really want to be authentic as I communicate with everyone. Secondly, some of you may have already read about me on my website, but for those of you who haven't, I wanted to give you a little bit of background as to what is really motivating me to run for City Council. I currently work full-time. I have multiple jobs, but my full-time job is with one of the largest mental health agencies in the state of Ohio. I am a licensed therapist. I'm licensed in the state of Ohio. And right now I work in the school-based services department. I have been a partner with Cincinnati Public Schools for 4 years now. And in addition to providing mental health treatment for the students at the school, I also provide a lot of prevention services and a lot of case management for the families that we serve. It's abundantly clear that many of our cities across the nation have a lot of deficits when it comes to mental health care. That has become very apparent to me in my years of practice. And on the case management side of things, where I am, helping families pay their rent, find new affordable housing, put food on their tables, get jobs, things of that nature, I've become more and more aware of just the needs that our students and our families in our city face on a day-to-day basis. It's been very eye-opening, very humbling, and it makes me passionate to help. When I work in the school, specifically, a lot of times my role is to help the students succeed educationally. But that's not going to happen if their other basic needs are not being met. Some of you may be familiar with something called Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a structure that pretty much says if people's basic needs aren't met, it's unrealistic to expect them to achieve higher and higher levels of achievement, success, things of that nature. And I absolutely buy into that. So let me start by showing you Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're unfamiliar, what you do is you start at the bottom. You start at the basic physiological needs: air, water, food, shelter, etc., etc. If those needs are not being met, we can't realistically hope or expect for someone to meet their safety needs. So personal security, excelling in employment, having good physical and mental health, maintaining good property, having resources. If those needs are not being met, then people are not going to do as well in their friendships, with their families, their sense of being connected with one another. If those needs are not being met, their self-esteem, their self-respect, their strength, their personal freedom, those things are unrealistic to expect of them. And lastly, self-actualization is just when the person is really trying to thrive and flourish in life. That's very hard and unrealistic to expect of someone when they're not even getting enough food to eat, when they don't have a roof over their heads, when their mental health needs are not being met, when their physical health needs are not being met, when they can't get to their jobs because the bus route is not close enough. It doesn't make sense to hope for the top when we aren't even taking care of what's on the bottom. That's why my platform is actually based on Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I'm excited to share that with you now. This is essentially the outline of my platform. It's shaped the same way as the hierarchy. It acts just like the hierarchy. So if elected to Cincinnati City Council, here's what I hope and expect to address. I want to work on the physical needs of our city. One of my biggest priorities is helping our neighborhoods have access to food and groceries, and not just food pantries and non-perishables and things of that nature. I have plans to bring fresh food to our neighborhoods who need them. So meat, produce, fresh dairy, things of that nature that are affordable and accessible to our families. Affordable housing. I'll be honest, this one is a little bit out of my realm. You'll hear me say that a couple of times tonight, and I'll expand more on that later. I'm not in real estate. I've never been a landlord. There are some things in this area that I don't have personal experience with, but I do work very closely with landlords. I hear their frustrations. I work with their tenants. I see what their tenants need as far as making their homes safer, more accessible, especially if there is an individual with a disability. I've lived in housing that is unkempt, unsafe. It's not pleasant. So one of my hopes is to work with our existing affordable housing to make it better while maintaining its affordability for our citizens. Access to affordable mental health care. I don't know if you know this, but not a whole lot of psychiatrists in our area accept CareSource. So a lot of times, when a majority or, a large portion of our population is insured by CareSource and they have a mental health diagnosis that needs to be overseen by a psychiatrist, not just a regular doctor. I love our regular doctors, but sometimes a real psychiatrist needs to be the one overseeing their care. Many psychiatrists do not take CareSource in our area, so that eliminates that option for way too many people. I want to work to eliminate that by investigating what the barriers are and eliminating the barriers so that more and more people can have access to mental health care, not just in the form of medication, which is the example that I just used, but in all aspects. I want to increase the resources for the opioid epidemic, which is still occurring. I feel that it has been overshadowed and overlooked some by the pandemic, understandably so, but I want to put that back in our radar, get resources in place for that. I want to make sure that our children have more access to mental health care in their schools. Not all of the schools in Cincinnati have a mental health partner, and I want to help change that. Access to affordable transportation. That is a huge barrier, especially for our families who are in poverty. Whether it's having a bus that doesn't run to the places they need it to go, or not having a grocery store within walking distance, All of these things I want to look at because transportation is key to helping people meet their physical needs. Now, moving up to the next level, safety needs. I have a plan to establish additional mobile crisis teams in Cincinnati. Mobile crisis is a team of counselors and social workers who get dispatched on mental health crises. Cincinnati has one. It's operated by UC. And I want to expand on what they have already done. I'll share a little bit more on that later. I want to expand suicide prevention training across the entire city, especially in the middle of a pandemic. This is of critical importance when people's social supports are not as accessible as they once were, as people's mental health and health supports are not as accessible as they once were. People losing their jobs, people not being able to get out of their homes and do the things that they love to do. I worry that this will cause a significant mental health crisis as the pandemic continues, and I want to get ahead of that as much as possible. So I have a plan to implement suicide prevention training citywide in multiple venues, and I'll share more on that later as well. One thing that is also very important to me as a citizen, but also as a woman of color, is improving the relationship between our communities and the Cincinnati Police Department. We know what's been going on in our country as far as police and the racial tension. We know it, we've seen it. I'm not going to rehash that here. And I do not see the benefit in abolishing the police. I see benefit in looking at how the budget is laid out and the training that is paid for our police, especially in regards to handling youth, homeless, bias training, mental health crises, de-escalation. I want to be looking into those things, but I have plans to improve the relationship of the police officers that we have in the communities that we have, so that Cincinnati can be an example of how police and communities can and should be working together. More on that later. All right, next up, connection needs. People need to be connected. I have a plan to connect many of our organizations and agencies in the city, more so than they are now. And I don't mean, one of the things that I envision is to have regular meetings with as many mental health agencies as possible, all at the table together or virtually, depending on how the pandemic's going. Let's be real here. Our food banks are organizations that help with housing, getting bills paid, providing furniture, crisis response, educational services, legal aid. I want to bring all of these like-minded agencies and organizations together on a regular basis. And while I would like to definitely hold those meetings with the higher ups, so to speak, so the individuals who are operating and are in charge of these organizations, I also want to bring the people that are paid to do the work, like the ones who are out in the field getting paid $10 to $15 an hour to do what they do. I want to bring them to the table, connect them to one another, because when we have a situation, let's say at my work, for example, and we have a family in crisis, they have this specific need, I might be able to refer them to one or two agencies in the area, and there are many more that I do not know about that I could be referring them to. This is an issue across the board. This is not just coming from me. I've talked to several individuals who face the same problem. We know that these places are out there. We just don't know exactly who they are, what they do, what they offer. So I want to bridge those gaps so that our families can be told exactly where to go for this need. Or if this organization is unable to help you at this time, here are 5 more that you can try. I want to see that. I've needed that in my own job, and I know that countless others have as well. And I have a plan to make that happen. I also want to improve our inclusion for non-English speaking individuals or individuals with English as a second language. The deaf or hard of hearing community, I feel that they are overlooked on a regular basis in our city, and it breaks my heart, and I want to change it. And individuals with disabilities, there's not enough in place for them, and I want to change that. I want everyone to be included and connected as we try to take our city to the next level. Esteem needs and autonomy, the top of the pyramid. These two, in the future, I hope, is where I actually will get to play more of a supportive role in making these happen. The top 2 needs are where I hope individuals can come to me as a city council member and say, Councilmember Stacey, we are really passionate about trying this in our neighborhood. We think it would benefit our community. We want to make this happen, whether it's doing a community-wide cleanup, improving their parks, or other initiatives like starting neighborhood-based tutoring programs, frequent block parties, different things of that nature. I want to support that and what the individual communities want to do together. So the top 2, I hope to play a more supportive role in. And the bottom 3 are the ones that I will be actively working towards. So if you noticed, the bottom 3 are now color-coded. Let me explain what this means to me and as I'm kind of looking at this. The ones in green are what I already have a written plan for from start to finish. As in, I have a written out plan to start and hopefully end this initiative, this goal. It has a goal, it has objectives, it has action steps to make the goal happen. In yellow, those are initiatives that I could use more help and resource in. I am not an expert in anything, or everything, I should say. I'm not an expert in everything. And I don't want to pretend to be one. We have to bring people to the table who have ideas and resources to make these things happen. So for the things that are shaded in yellow, if you or you know someone who is passionate about how to include English as a second language speakers or individuals with disabilities, how to include them, or if you know someone who is passionate about affordable housing, affordable transportation, please reach out to me, send them my way. I want to collaborate with them, get their ideas, pick their brains so that we can identify the barriers that are preventing us from already having these things in place so that we can overcome them. And my hope is that over time, more and more of my plan will be revealed and it'll be more complete. More on that later. Now, I do want to draw your attention. There is one, the access to food and groceries. That's orange. That pretty much just means that there are 2 goals as of right now for that specific topic. And one of those goals is written out. From the goal to the objectives to the action steps, it's written out, ready to go. But I'm still working on the second goal. That's what that orange one means, just in case anyone was wondering. Now, you've heard me talk about the goals, the objectives, the action plans. In therapy, we like to follow what's called the golden thread, which pretty much means when a client enters our doors, starts services with us, we start from the problem, we create a goal, We create objectives to help us know whether or not we're heading towards that goal. And we create action steps, things that we are actively going to do with that client to help them reach their goals. I operate the same way as I formulate my plans for City Council, and I'm so excited to share some of these with you now. What I will say before I do is that I am very approachable. I am very teachable. As I said, I am not an expert in everything. There are going to be individuals who see my plan and think, okay, she might be onto something, but I wonder if X, Y, and Z would be a better approach. If that's the case, please reach out to me. I want these plans to work, and the best way for plans to work in my mind is when collaboration happens. So that being said, let me share some of my goals as they stand now. This is very wordy. If you need to pause this video at some point to look at this more in depth, please feel free to do so. But this is what I have written out. This is what I am following as I am preparing for what I hope to accomplish in City Council. As you can see, there's a goal to increase mental health mobile crisis resources within the city of Cincinnati. I have objectives on how to make that goal happen. I have action steps to make those objectives happen. And what I imagine is that for each of these, there will be, as each action step is complete, there's going to be more that come up. So if I, for example, complete action step 4A on here, that will probably generate more action steps just based on that meeting. And I will add those as they come in. I will add action steps as necessary, as well as objectives. I will also change the goal if we come across one that's like, okay, this may not be the most realistic, but changing it to this might be more feasible, reasonable, and effective for our citizens. As I said, I'm teachable, I'm workable. Here's another one. Increasing training on suicide risk assessment using a specific assessment that is and can be utilized by just about anyone. I hope to formulate teams of individuals who can go out and complete this training in schools, so with school staff as well as middle and high school students, jail staff, churches and religious organizations who I feel should be on the front lines of this thing, non-emergency health providers, so doctors, nurses, and dentists, and first responders. And I have plans to make that happen, to formulate those teams, right down to who to request the funding from and what agencies to approach for interest. Another example, establishing programs with citizens and Cincinnati Police Department to increase trust and build rapport with one another. One of these plans is already in the works, and I plan to see it through whether or not I'm elected to City Council, because that's how I operate. But I have other plans as well. I hope to formulate additional bias training, not just for Cincinnati Police Department officers, but for citizens as well, so that we can all come together and understand what some of the underlying problems are that may be getting missed in some of these trainings and this, that, or the other. And last one, this is specifically for someone who was talking to me on Twitter. They're very concerned about the food deserts here in Cincinnati. I am too. They're one of the main reasons that many of the families that I work with can't get food when they need to. And it breaks my heart and it angers me. So this one is still semi in the works, but I want to look at donations. So a little background, I used to work at a grocery store, and it would infuriate me that we would have to throw away a 10-pound bag of potatoes because a potato went bad. I want to figure out how we can implement programs to where fresh meat that is around or approaching its expiration date isn't tossed, but frozen and set aside and picked up by food pantries and churches that can get these into the hands of people who need them and will use them. I want to reduce the grocery waste in our city and get those perishable products that really don't need to perish, to get them into the hands and on the tables of people who need them. And I want to do it safely and effectively. I have a plan to make that happen. So those are examples of what my plans are looking like at this time. And again, this is my platform. This is the lens that I am going to be using to make all of my decisions on city council as well. So if you wonder how I'm going to vote on the city budget, look at this and understand that this is the lens that I'm looking at the city budget through. Or when other issues get brought to city council for a vote, this is the lens that I'm going to be looking at. Each and every single one of those issues is through this hierarchy of needs. And I'm going to be asking questions like, okay, is this going to improve the physical needs in these neighborhoods? Is this going to sacrifice any connection needs or safety needs for our citizens? This is the lens that I'm going to be looking through all of the issues in city council. So again, if you wonder how I'm going to vote on certain issues, look at this and you might get an idea. You can also just ask me. As I said, I'm very approachable. I love talking to people. I love hearing concerns, ideas. So please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to share my screen one more time because at the end here, we have some ways to contact me. I have a Twitter, so please feel free to reach out to me on there. I have a website. On that note, on the website, I hope to upload my goals, my hierarchy and my goals onto the website so that you can see them, and I will keep them updated on a regular basis. A little more on that later. You can also email me or reach out to me through Facebook. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, ideas, I would love to hear any of it. Now, moving forward with the campaign, I want to start from the beginning, being authentic, being transparent, because I think that authenticity and transparency is something that has been lacking in City Hall for quite some time. And those are not what I'm about. I'm about authenticity and transparency. I'm about being real and honest. I am not about to go to prison. Not happening. I am not about to get charges brought against me. I am not here for that. I'm here to serve my city. So that being said, I want to start practicing those things from the very beginning. So on my website, I will regularly be updating what my campaign budget is looking like. Here's what was donated, by whom, unless they specifically ask for me not to share that information. I plan to disclose everything that comes into the campaign and everything that goes out of the campaign, as well as what I spent it on. You deserve to know that. I also plan to frequently modify and upload the hierarchy and the goals so that you can see them. Okay, here's what Stacey plans to do. Here's how Stacey plans to do it. Stacey met with these individuals, and now here is how this goal and these objectives and these action steps have changed as a result of those meetings. I want you to be able to see that because this is a journey that we're going to be going on together. So I want to keep you informed every step of the way. And on City Council, I'm going to be using the hierarchy and those goals as they're written out, as I showed you earlier. I want those to be used for accountability. I want you to be able to say, Stacey said at the beginning of her campaign and all throughout her campaign that her goals were to do X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C. I want you to be able to see whether or not I'm following through with my campaign promises, because they're not going to change. and I want you to be able to see the fruit of our labor. So as things are happening, so let's say, for example, on the goal regarding the suicide prevention training, if the meeting between the Hamilton County Mental Health Board, myself, and several agencies in the city of Cincinnati, if that action step happens, that's going to be reflected on my website. It's either going to have a check mark by it, or it's going to be coded in green, something that lets you know this action step has taken place, it has been accomplished, she's done this, here's what she's moving on to next. So you will be able to see every step in the way, what I am doing, what I am accomplishing, and the work that I'm putting into our city. I don't want that to be something that you are kept in the dark about. I want you to know everything that I am doing, because again, transparency and authenticity are very important to me, and they're very important in reestablishing the trust between our city and Cincinnati City Hall. And I hope to help bridge that trust. I'm a bridge builder by nature. I love to go into situations where trust has been hurt, or in some cases destroyed, and I like to rebuild it so that that relationship can begin working again as it should be. So moving forward, here are some of my needs for the campaign. I need to finish collecting signatures. So if you're an individual that I know personally and you're registered to vote in Cincinnati, I would love to meet with you and help canvass your neighborhood with you. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to hand off petitions and ask you to do the work. I want to do the work with you. So if this is something that you want to get behind right now, the best way you can support me is by helping me reach out to your neighbors to help get my name on the ballot. That's goal number one right now. As far as financing and donations go, I'm not going to begin asking for those until I can guarantee that my name is going to be on the ballot. That to me personally, I don't mind that others do it, but to me personally, that seems far too risky, and I want people to know for sure that they're giving money to a candidate who is actually on the ballot. So I want to put in the work first, ask for donations later. So please don't worry about that right now. If you have any questions about how to help the campaign, please feel free to reach out. I'm just really excited. Cincinnati needs a lot. We need a lot of our families and our citizens. We need their basic needs to be getting met, and it's not happening. We need a lot of mental health support in our city. And while what we have is great, and I appreciate what everyone in the field does already, we need so much more for our citizens, and we can get more. And I have plans to make that happen. We need to help heal the relationship between law enforcement and citizens. It is possible. Is it going to be a perfect utopia? Absolutely not. That's not what I'm trying to sell you on. But as long as citizens and police exist together, we can be taking steps to make sure that that relationship grows stronger and stronger and functions to keep everyone else safe. It can happen, and I have plans to help that happen. Not make that happen. I'm not a miracle worker, but I have plans to help the process. So if you like what you hear, if these are things that you want to get behind, then I would appreciate your support and your vote to Cincinnati City Council in November of 2021. Once again, my name is Stacey Smith. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your interest, and I hope to see you after this video to ask any questions. And I hope you reach out to me at any point to just share ideas, ask questions. Please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. But for now, thank you so much for watching. You'll be hearing from me again very soon.